Hello and welcome to the Be Formless Float Driven CEO podcast. I am super thrilled to have Kaitlin Roberson here, all the way from Dallas, Texas. Kaitlin, it's really lovely to have you here on the show. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for reaching out to me. This is a pleasure to be visiting with you across the world and having this conversation. I
Yeah.
love what you're doing. So I've been excited about this chat.
Thank you, thank you. And it's Wednesday at five. So around Wednesday, it's Wednesday, right? It's Wednesday,
Yes.
5:24 p.m. or 5:25 p.m. So you're in the past. I'm in the future because it's Thursday morning here in Melbourne, Australia. But right now we're in the present, and people are going to get sick of me talking about that. But I just love that whole analogy that here we are, we're both super present. But yet you're yesterday and I'm tomorrow for you. So quite funny, isn't it, that this can bring us together like this, but yet we can be living in different times. Um, so excited to have you here, and I feel like this is going to be one interesting conversation. I want to quickly just talk a little bit about you, and then I'm going to hand it straight over to you because I'm actually really quite curious and thrilled to hear about your whole life experience and how it's got you to where you are. But you're the co-founder and CEO of Cacti Therapeutics. It's a Dallas-based biotech company. But from what you said to me, it's a Harvard spin out. Your co-founder, he's in Boston. You've come from Boston, but been living in Dallas, Texas, I think, for the last 5 years. And your company, Cacti Therapeutics, is pioneering trauma-informed psychedelic-derived therapies from chronic pain and I'll just say addiction and let you talk a bit more about that. You
Mhm.
have a master's in human development and psychology from Harvard yourself. And you combine that, your own expertise in trauma care and business finance to develop those holistic solutions to address both the physical and the emotional aspects of pain. And I'm really curious to hear more about where, I guess, your own lived experience, how it's got you to this, but also then you said to me just before that you're starting to also look at training in informed resilience growth as well. So tell us a bit about your journey. Yeah, and I'll let you just share.
Yeah, well, it has been quite the journey. Um, I am married to a pain neurobiologist, and so
Oh,
we had a lot of conversations about pain drug development over the years because he's a Harvard trained neuroscientist and he's trained in drug development. And so we'd always talked about it, but I was working in the humanitarian field. So I was working with refugee population, and most of my career has been focused on trauma and trauma's impact on um, a human's ability to integrate into society and to thrive in their communities. And so, the joke was always like, our family is focused on pain. Like I'm focused on the emotional pain, and then my husband's focused on
physical.
the physical pain and resolving it, from different angles. Back in May of 22, we started really seriously considering combining our two, like bringing together our two professional worlds, mine in developmental psychology and his in pain neurobiology, and looking at how trauma's role in chronic pain, because I'm also a chronic pain patient. So my pain has a physical reason. I had scoliosis growing up and I was in a full body brace all through high school.
Wow.
And then, the ramifications of that as I aged and had four children, I ended up with back surgery in my mid 30s and in chronic pain from, both arthritis, but herniated disc. And it's been like a decades long struggle living in constant pain and going through the whole, the Western medical approach
Mm.
of just treating the symptom and recognizing that with chronic pain, the options available for treatment are really just masking um, you're killing the neuron, you're masking it. It's a band-aid, but it's not really getting to the root of the problem often. And that's why we're in a chronic pain because we're still, the signal is still being sent to the brain, like I'm in pain, I'm in pain, I'm in pain, even
Screaming.
after,
Yeah.
we've had surgery or we've recovered from the illness. And I knew from my own experience that there was a psychological component to it too, because every time I was under a lot of emotional stress, my back pain would flare up. And I thought, what is this about? This is so frustrating.
Mm.
Yeah. And, we're in Western medicine, we're not great at making the mind body connection. We treat symptoms and we treat it on a very like physical level. And that's not the way the human body is. The body is like this really complex organism communicating with, all the various parts. And so I really challenge the idea of creating pain drugs that just masked symptoms. Could we rewire the brain? Could we address the parts that where pain becomes suffering in the brain, the emotional components of pain? And is this just through cognitive behavioral therapy? Is it just the different modalities that we use, like even acupuncture and massage and cryotherapy or whatever, all the different modalities that we try to treat our pain. But is there a way that we could actually design a drug that would target the way that pain is processed in the brain? And so that was the initial conversations that led us down this whole path of then exploring the psychedelic pharmacophores, because at the time, 2017, 18, 19, there was a lot of companies emerging to treat mental health,
Yeah.
depression, anxiety with psychedelics. And I thought, okay, well, if they're effective in alleviating the symptoms of PTSD or bringing about healing from early childhood traumas or adult traumas, is there a way that we could harness this neuroplasticity to rewire the brain around pain? And so that's how we formed Cacti, was asking these deeper questions around pain plasticity. And so yeah, we ended up designing novel compounds, novel new chemical entities that are addressing essentially pain plasticity, the signal that your neurons are sending to your brain. And yeah, that's how we ended up down that road. But on a very personal level, the month after we started Cacti, my husband witnessed a shooting that in Dallas, Texas.
Wow.
He was with the man when he was shot and died, and it immediately started extreme panic attacks in my husband. And my training had been in trauma. I mean, I could go back to, I won't go into my whole history, but I started down the path of the humanitarian field from working in Romanian orphanages.
Mm.
So that's where I first witnessed like developmental trauma. But throughout my different um, job experiences, I've witnessed trauma's impact on people.
Yeah.
So my training was in trauma, but here I am with a spouse having severe panic attacks, and it was clear that it was post-traumatic stress disorder, that it was PTSD from this shooting. And I felt so
Horrible.
helpless, yeah, I didn't know what to do. And all my training just felt like, oh,
What do I do now?
yeah, what do I do now? And then here we had just started this company to address the PTSD or trauma driving a lot of chronic pain conditions. And then we're stuck in our family system dealing with the trauma of, a spouse and a dad with panic attacks. And so that has been the last 3 years have been the most challenging years of my life.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that's saying a lot because we went through a lot over our 20 years together. We've been
Yeah.
through a lot of adversity. But this particular experience with PTSD has really, to me, highlighted, illuminated the need for more understanding and support around people
Going through it.
that experience, deep trauma and its impact on the family system and on the individual. So yeah, and in a nutshell, like what happened was my chronic pain then became worse and worse as I got deeper and deeper into survival mode, trying to
Yeah,
manage,
absolutely.
we both actually have two um, startups at the time, that we were both managing two startup companies. And so the stress of building companies and dealing with our own mental health has really been so challenging that it's made me question like how many other founders out there are dealing with, at the very least, like anxiety, depression, mental health, stressors. Of course, we've all that was all illuminated to us through COVID too. And so I've started really thinking about like trauma's role in our, our human experience. And when we're managing teams or running companies, like what is the impact of these mental health conditions, and how can we build greater resilience with all of the change, with all of the adversity that is coming our way,
Wow, it's so
if we're living a
fascinating.
human
My gosh,
experience.
you're like, it's like I knew there was going to be a story, but I didn't expect it to be this such a big story. But how was your
Well,
how
you get the privilege of me coming out and saying it for the first time. We're finally at the place where we feel like we can publicly talk about it. When we were building the companies, we didn't feel like we could say what was going on privately. You feel
I just
like,
don't think
will
you
that?
can. Can you? I think when
Yes.
you're in it, it's, and I know that firsthand. When you're in it and you're just, like you say, in that survival mode, or just getting up each day and taking one step forward, and you've got your personal adversity going on, but then you're trying to build a business, you've got everything going on. It's almost impossible, I think. Like you're just trying to get through it yourself. And so
Yeah.
trying to keep it all together, especially when you've got four kids, three dogs, all of that going on. I think that's where it's just like, and you've got to be ready to share, and you've got to be ready to talk about it, and you've got to almost be ready to have enough of it. Together's the
Mhm.
wrong word, but to be able to go, no, this is how this has all come about. But how
Yeah.
how is your husband now? Like, how's he with his PTSD?
Yeah, he's doing well now, but it took a lot of, searching for different treatment options, finding the right trauma therapist, finding the right modality, psychedelic assisted psychotherapy for him, that which required like going to Mexico to get treatment. I mean, it has been an extremely long and arduous process to find the right treatment that
Yeah,
actually began to unlock, what he needed to be able to process the trauma, integrate it in his system, and feel, fully seen and heard and understood, and yeah, and be able to make a different meaning around what he was all of a sudden thrust into,
yeah.
because he dropped our kids off at the airport, and we were just going to have like 2 weeks of devoted time to really like work on the companies and be focused without children around. And then this man was shot right beside him as he was driving. The man was shot. And then he was just thrust into this scene, right, where he felt like he had to be there, like he had to help him, but he wasn't prepared for it and
You
wasn't,
never are you?
yeah.
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 And what about you? How are you? Like, you've obviously had like years of I never can never say the word right. Is it
Yes.
scoliosis? Yep.
Yeah.
And your chronic pain, how's yours? Like, as given it flared up as much as it did with you going into survival mode with your husband, how are you now? Like, how's your pain?
Yeah, that's been a whole journey myself, figuring out that, like I said, what your doctor will offer you is a band-aid or a mask, and
Yeah.
it really doesn't like address the underlying driver of what it is that's causing you to be stuck in pain. And so, I will share more and more publicly about this in the future. I'm actually working on a book now
Yes.
because I want to write the book that I wish I had had 3 years ago, the support that I needed as the spouse of somebody with PTSD. So, I did my research, and there just wasn't quite the right book out there for what I have lived through. And so I'm like, well, I've got to write it myself. And even if it's just cathartic for me,
Yeah.
like even if
Sometimes it
it's just part of
is.
my healing
Yeah.
journey,
Yeah.
That's what I'm working through right now. But what happened is I ended up on 9 different
I
prescriptions
was about to
because
say,
they were treating my pain, they were treating then my hormones that were out of whack from the high stress load, and they're treating my sleep. And it's like you're chasing all of these things that one leads to another, that leads to another, that leads to another, and then you're just treating all the symptoms. And
like,
before
who
you
am
know it,
I?
you're on all these different prescriptions and still not at a place of healing. So I really, this last year, I really again like challenged that whole paradigm and said, this is not living. I'm not thriving. Here I have all this training in human flourishing and I am dying. Like this is killing
Yeah,
me
it's like your
slowly.
soul, isn't it? It's like your soul is just like it's like who,
Yeah.
like I don't know. I've had my own different forms of adversity, but like you probably can relate to this, but it's like you're having an out of body experience. You're watching this person and you're looking at it and you're like, that's me, but it's not me. And I'm like, I don't know how to, it's so disconnected from who there's more to it. You're so disconnected, but you don't know how to put it all back together. Like when you talk about that mind, body, and soul, because you might have 10 or 9 prescriptions going and, it's like you're chasing this thing, but it's like, no, this isn't thriving. This isn't
Yeah.
normal. And I don't know normal's the wrong word, but you know what I mean? Like
Right.
that's how
Right.
I've felt in those situations where it's just like, there's just got to be more to this. Like I can't, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I'm here to do. This is not what I'm here to be. Like I can't
Right.
just keep going along on this path that I'm being given to me in terms of, well, just if you do this and do that, it'll fix this. Because it's so, you say band-aid. I also say it's so transactional. Like it's not actually
Yes.
looking at what's going on holistically here. What's actually happening
Right.
physically, mentally, from a soul level, all of that. And it sounds like that's exactly what you were questioning
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
Well, I mean, you're reflecting exactly like we get so locked into the systems that we've built and the way that things operate, the way that things are, and then we get into survival mode around all of it, where we're just trying to get through the day and do what we're supposed to do to, meet the expectations or the quotas or the profit or like all these things, all these different drivers of why we function the way that we function. And before we know it, we're over functioning and, and not respecting what the body is saying to us. Like what I've learned is that pain is a teacher. And so is anxiety, and so is depression. Like everything that our body is saying to us is a teacher. It is communicating a message to us, whether it's this is not working, slow down. Often I think that's what it is, right? Like this is the way that you're operating is really, really messing up your nervous system,
Yeah,
but
100%.
we're pressured, right? We're so pressured um, to meet the expectations of the world that we've built around us and the roles that we play, that we often hush the body and say, well, no, like I just have to get through this. I have to, well, I have to meet this deadline. And once I meet this deadline, then I can relax. And we make all of these excuses when our body is screaming at us at the end of the day. Like it's saying, wait, 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 stop, slow down. Like this isn't working.
Yeah.
And when we start listening, it's scary because, like, does that mean we can't, work the 9 to 5, um,
Am I going to be
fulfill our
successful again? Like that
right,
silence, it's all of that. Like, oh my gosh, there's times when I've had that silence and I'm like, I don't like this silence. But then I've had times where I've had the screaming at me going, stop, stop, you're not listening, you know?
right,
Do
right,
you, do
right.
you, do you think that, I don't know about you, but I kind of feel that there's certain people in the world that almost are faced with such intense adversity, like what your husband have been through. And, I'm a bit of a believer that things happen for a reason. And I just wonder whether you're here to make a bigger impact, and so you have to almost go through that form of adversity or that lived experience to be able to go to live it, to experience it, to feel it, to everything, to be able to then, because not everyone can then almost go, almost, where am I going with this? Almost kind of go, actually, I'm going to do something with this now. I'm not going to just settle for this. I'm not going to let this just be, this is it. And,
Right.
you and your husband, yes, as much as you've been through, you're like, no, this isn't just it. There is more to this. We're now going to explore this. And I take it even back to your business from,
Right.
you're 5 years in and you're about to almost sounds by the sounds of things pivot or open it, crack it. It's been cracked open even more so. Do you
Mhm.
think there's something in that in terms of, yeah, you kind of sometimes I go, why is this happening to me? Why am I still having these adversities happen, or why has this happened? And it's not
Right.
necessarily coming from a victim sense. It's just coming from a, what is the lesson here? What are you wanting me to do next? Like what, it's almost like taking you on your next journey of yourself and, your business or whatever. What's your view on that? And I don't know if I'm making sense when I ask that question.
Yeah, no, you totally are. And you're right. Like if we have a victim mentality about things, then we just look at all the suffering and the pain and the hard as like, why me? And it can be so all-consuming and overpowering and, take over. Um, if you have that mindset. But if you look at hardship and adversity, pain, suffering, as an opportunity for growth, as a gift, as hard as that is. I mean, I'm beginning to understand the universe in that way.
Same.
That, when pain comes our way, when challenges, struggles, it is an opportunity for our growth, for deepening our awareness, for maturing. And, maturity doesn't happen without that challenge. And I'm starting to recognize, like, when I'm really triggered in my life, like that is a reflection of an area that is still wounded inside of me. And often those wounds are from our childhood. They're actually the meaning we made around an experience from our upbringing that then is coming out in the way that we're showing up in that interaction as an adult. And I'm
Mm.
here to say that today, my teenagers triggered me. Like, I'm thinking, like, of all the training I've been through, in motivation, in developmental psychology, and I'm utterly failing with teenagers. Like that's how it feels. Like it feels like they are just, wow, they are so challenging to everything, like emotionally, mentally, trying to figure out how to and connect with them and motivate them and help them show up in the world in a respectful way. I just wanted to clobber one of them this morning.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
trying to
fair.
get
Yeah.
to the
I mean,
passport office and they're like not wanting to get out of bed and not wanting to respect any sort of time frame. It was so frustrating. But I've been reflecting on that today and recognizing that, yeah, these things, whether it's, conflict on a team in your company or it's your own conflict with your kids, the things that trigger us reveal this area of like unhealed material in our subconscious that we really need to be curious about
yeah.
and ask, like, what is it here that is making me so
Triggered.
angry
Yeah,
and
yeah, I agree.
aggressive?
Like, and it's interesting, like my own journey, probably the last 12 months, I've really stopped and started to listen. Well, I've had no choice. Like the universe is just like gone, if you're not listening, we're going to keep stopping you until you listen. And
Yeah.
so, my things pop up and I'm like, ugh, like it's almost like I get floored on again. I go, okay. But you're so right. Like once upon a time, it was always like, what's wrong with them or what's wrong with this? And when it came to like, I had a team of 150, so my frustration at times would be like, why can't they just do it the way like or go as quickly as what I'm doing? And like, but yet I was working at a stupid, rate, which caused severe burnout for me. And, I don't have children, but I've got nieces and a nephew, and, the nieces are 14 and 16. And sometimes I'm like, my sister's like, just relax. Like, it's just them. But I get triggered. Like, I get like, like if I see them and they don't always want to kiss and hug me because I'm so used to them when they're being little. And then I'm like, and my sister's like, don't take it personally. And I think now it is me. There's something in me that's like it's triggering me. So you have to go, well, what is it that is, upsetting me? Because they're
Right.
just being teenagers at the end of the day. Like, but yet I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I'm not going to be giving them kisses or hugs anymore. I mean, that's a stupid example, but you know what I mean? Like, but you're
But
right.
what you're highlighting is important, whether it's with children or whether it's with your, with your colleagues on a team or with your company. It, it really isn't about us, and it is about us. Like we can't take it personally, and that it's not, um, whatever conflict came about, it's an opportunity to just be really curious about it and say, like, what is going on here? What's underneath the material that we're, arguing about isn't often what's really going on there.
Yeah,
And if we just take the time to not get personally offended and start blaming and criticizing the other, but actually challenge
digging in.
be curious about it, right?
Yeah,
And ask the deeper questions, like
yeah.
what's really going on here? It's so the conversation is so much more fruitful.
Yeah, totally. So talk to me just quickly about your holistic. You talked around that you're exploring this trauma, you're training in informed resilience growth. What's your view on, obviously there's post-traumatic stress disorder. What's your view on
Right.
post-traumatic growth? Like, in terms of, is that what you're talking about when you talk about this informed resilience growth? Is it how do you come from a place of adversity, whether it's, in
Mhm.
life, in business, I talk about even from a leadership perspective. Is that what
Right,
you're now
right.
looking at holistically around, well, how do you get people to then bounce? I call it bouncing forward. So I talk about this anti-fragility, which is, obviously resilience, you're bouncing back, but then how do you, when you come up against this adversity, how do you ensure that you have that ability to bounce forward? Is that sort of where what you're exploring at the moment without asking you to divulge, because
Right.
obviously you're still working through a number of things and you're writing your book,
Yeah. Yeah.
etc. But what's your
No,
view on
it's
that?
been really, yeah, it's been really fun for me to think more deeply about the role of trauma and how we negotiate any hardship in life. But I think so much of our understanding of like building resilience and getting through hardship often isn't from a trauma-informed lens. Like we're not really understanding what it is that's blocking us from that breakthrough,
Yeah,
from the deeper insight, from understanding the limiting beliefs around
yeah,
how we're understanding the situation. And so as I've delved more into, the meaning that we make around our experiences, it's really pushed me more in the direction of understanding trauma's role in that, whether, like I said, whether it's the meaning the child made of a particularly, hard circumstance, and then how that plays out in their adult interactions, or significant, um, traumas throughout the lifespan, that then inform the way that we look at the world and look at our interactions with other people. And so I've long been fascinated with resilience and growing our capacity for hard, which really only happens by walking through
parents.
hard
Yeah,
things, right? Like a few years ago, I remember there was so much talk on college campuses around trigger warnings, right? People wanted to avoid the things that would make them uncomfortable, but it's being able to approach pain, move toward it, move toward the uncomfortable, that actually gives us that opportunity to grow our capacity to handle harder and harder hard. Now we have to respect our bodies capacity, right? And each of us have our limitations and our different, yeah, we each have our capacity for hard, but running from pain, running away from the hard doesn't grow our capacity to handle, doesn't build our resilience.
It's
And
stuff.
so I'm trying to explore the ways that we can move toward the pain, move toward the hard, and like I said, see it as an opportunity to go deeper and expand our capacity because
Yeah,
the human capacity to handle hard is really phenomenal.
I
I mean,
agree.
we are able to endure all kinds of traumas and still thrive. Um, and for all the hard that I've been through in my lifetime, it does not, and I warn people, not to compare traumas, right? But I've also worked with the refugee population, and I understand that, losing home, losing country, being tortured. I mean, there's levels of hard that are just unfathomable to most of us. Like
Yeah,
most of the hard that we experience in a lifetime are nothing compared to what a child has experienced in the migration story. And yet, so many of those children become very resilient and very open-hearted and expanded human beings. So what are they doing differently to get there? And that's what's really fascinating to me. And then on the intersection of pain, it's the same thing. Like if we're able to move toward the pain with compassion, with curiosity, what can it reveal to us? What can it teach us? So that's what I'm spending a lot of time thinking and trying to develop some, maybe some modules around what that can look like for companies too, and for founders in particular, because I think a lot of um, a lot of executives mask what's going
yeah, I did
on
that.
because they
Both.
feel like they have to. They feel like they can't show weakness. And Brene Brown did so much I mean, her work is amazing on authenticity and vulnerability and what it means to show up as our full authentic selves and be wholehearted human beings. And I want to push into that even more from, like I said, from a trauma informed lens, from understanding the narratives that we built from our childhood forward, and then how we can show up in the workplace a really genuine in a really genuine way.
Yeah, and yeah, in a soulful way, I feel like it's a soulful conscious way. Like, how do you become that soulful conscious leader? And you talk about the mask, and I was a mask. Like I was like coming on stage like a, rock star, like singing, but then I'd come off stage and I was just like realized how much of a mess I was. And I masked it for so long, because was just kind of what I did. And now I'm like, no, that's not how we did. Because then by holding on to it all, the chronic stress, the pain, all of that, it has to come out at some point. And then it can come
Yeah.
out in the most craziest ways and situations.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah, we
think,
can get away with it for so long. Like,
yeah, exactly. And
I was talking with some Navy SEALs here, and they are some tough dudes. They've been trained
totally,
to handle hard, hard, hard. But there's a downside to that. And eventually the body does say, like, time out, enough
yeah,
is enough. And some of us can override those signals for
certain periods.
5 years, 10 years, matter of months. But then when the nervous system finally
Cracks.
says all systems down,
That's exactly what happened to me. And it's still now doing it to me every now and again. Like it's still coming at me going, no, system is going to have a break for a minute. So I
right.
have,
And then what do we do with that? Like that's the challenge, right? How do we work when our body is telling us like that this is not working any longer? Then how do we build work that works for that, where we're honoring what our body is telling us and we're still showing up in a way that feels meaningful to the world, impactful, productive? Like that's where I'm at right now with everything I've been through, physically over the last few years, because eventually my body did just totally. The first year of the PTSD with my spouse, I could go like over function and just work, 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 and it was fine. I mean, it seemed fine. It seemed like I was handling it all. And then by the second and third year, it just everything fell apart. And now I'm having to rearrange my entire, work life to honor what my body is telling me. And for me, that's looking like, okay, to get in the flow state, it's going to be just a couple hours of focus work where I can clear everything and work in like a 2 hour block. And I can't do a lot of screen time. For whatever reason, screen time really, it manifests as this choking feeling in my throat. I have this somatic experiencing of
Mm.
anxiety that's like this all-consuming choking feeling that's just so obnoxious. And so I have to work in these shorter periods of time, but I'm having to adjust my own, I can't do the 9 to 5. I
But
have
that's
to,
but that for me is exactly what I'm going through, right? And it's a big change, but that's for me the opportunity, and I think that's people like yourself, myself, other, pioneers, change makers that we're here to reshape and redefine what that looks like because it isn't sustainable the way we were operating. And
yeah,
it's not. And it catches up with you either way in time. And some of us have to experience the extreme adversity to be able to then go, okay, there's got to be a better way. And it's that by the sounds of things, that's what you're doing. That's what I'm here to do. I know that's what I'm here to do based on the lived experiences. And I think we're in, I don't have all the answers just yet. And it sounds like you're exploring as well. But we're on that exploration because there is a better way to flourish. There's a better way to thrive. There's a better way to live,
mhm,
so that it is more, you have that ability to access that flow state where it is more focused. You get more done, but you're not kind of pushing to yourself to the brink. Do you know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah, you're actually listening to your body and,
Yeah.
being in it, it's like an iterative process
Yeah,
where you're
it
listening
is.
and it's a feedback loop, right? But I think it does take quite a bit of faith and trust that it will work out, I mean, that's
100%.
where I'm at right now that, wow, if I don't work 10, 12, 18-hour days, like that it will still
Be
I will
okay.
still be able to provide for my family. I will still be okay,
Yeah.
right? And but it's adjusting those expectations too of what does it mean to have a healthy life and
Trust the
lifestyle.
process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Caitlin, what would be your one bit of words of wisdom for anybody that is facing trauma right now or in a form of adversity, whether it be in as a founder, in life? What would be your one bit of advice or wise words?
Yeah, well, don't do it alone, first of all. As much as we all try to handle things on our own and be incredibly self-sufficient, that self-sufficiency has a limit. And I think especially for founders and people running high impact teams and everything, you can get really caught in well, I have to fix this myself. And we are social creatures and we are in community for a reason. And to ask for help is one of the, indicators of maturity, really.
Yeah, I
Like
love that.
the task of like being able to ask for help is really an important part of human growth. And so, yeah, if you're struggling, ask for help and don't give up if the first signal that you send out of like, hey, I'm drowning, I'm not doing well, isn't met with the energy or support that you need. Don't give up there. You like in our story, we had to try many different
Mm,
healing modalities. We had
mm,
to keep reaching out. We had to keep the conversation open because the first thing that we attempted wasn't it.
yeah,
And I think for many people when they visit a therapist for the first time and it doesn't they don't have the rapport with the therapist, they give up there. Oh, therapy's not for me. You can't give up there. You have to have some persistence.
boring. Yeah,
And I think the thing I always say is that healing is a lifelong journey. And so you have to continually be asking for help and looking for the ways to grow and have some tenacity about it, that you can't give up on yourself. You're
no,
worth it,
yeah.
you're worth it.
I agree. Oh my God, I feel like we could just keep talking and talking, but I know you've had a big day. How do we find out more about you, Kaitlin, as well? Like what you're doing, everything you're experiencing,
Sure.
sharing with the world. Where do we find out more about you?
Yeah, well, at age 44, I have decided like I'm showing up as myself in the world.
So am
I don't know
I.
what it is about women in their 40s, but we do eventually like shed enough layers of the ego where we're like, you know what? I'm going to show up as myself unapologetically,
Love
whether
that.
you like it or not, here I am. And so, I am myself on social media. You can follow me on LinkedIn at Kaitlin Seymour Roberson. I'm also on Instagram, Kaitlin Roberson. And then Cacti Therapeutics is also on Instagram at Cacti Therapeutics. And I will be sharing a lot more now that I'm finally at a place where I feel like, not that it's healed, I'm still in process, but that's one of the things that I decided this year is like, I'm not going to wait till I'm clear on the other side of this and I'm thriving and I'm healthy and flourishing and all that. I want to actually show the struggle. I want to show the whole journey of like picking yourself up from rock bottom it's in process. I'm in process, but I want to show up that way and show other people that you can be in process and it's messy. There's a messy
I
middle to
agree.
this. I think I'm still in the messy
Me
middle.
too.
So if you
Me
follow
too.
me on socials, like you're
I
going to
love
see the
that.
messy middle.
Me too. Me too. Well, Caitlin, thank you so much. I've thoroughly enjoyed chatting to you. I feel like we'll probably get on the pod again eventually and in the next iteration. Embrace the messiness. Don't do it alone. So much wise words from you today. Wishing you all the very best and have a lovely evening.
Same to you. I feel like I met a new friend. So
Me
reach out to
too.
me
Me too.
anytime, V.
Let's stay
Love the
connected. I love
conversation.
this. Thank you, Caitlin.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.